Here come the tariffs, what Trump is promising, and how Canada is responding. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Tariffs on Canadian exports to the United States are supposed to come into effect tomorrow. U.S. President Donald Trump insists this is why.
Canada's been very abusive of the United States for many years. They don't allow our banks. Did you know that? Canada does not allow banks to go in. If you think about it, that's pretty amazing. If we have a U.S. bank, they don't allow them to go in. Canada's been very tough on oil, on energy. They don't allow our farm products in, essentially. They don't allow a lot of things in, and we allow everything to come in. It's been a one-way street. We subsidize Canada by the tune of about $200 billion a year. And for what? What do we get out of it? We don't get anything out of it. I love the people of Canada. I disagree with the leadership of Canada. And something's going to happen there. But if they want to play the game, I don't mind. We can play the game all they want.
Trump also said Canada isn't alone in taking advantage of the United States. He said so is the European Union, and so is the UK.
It will definitely happen with the European Union, I can tell you that, because they've really taken advantage of us. And, you know, we have over a $300 billion deficit. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm products. They take almost nothing. And we take everything from them, millions of cars, tremendous amounts of food and farm products. So the UK is way out of line, and we'll see the UK, but European Union is really out of line. UK is out of line, but I'm sure that one, I think that one can be worked out. But the European Union it's an atrocity, what they've done.
Meanwhile, in a new development, Mexico's president says that country has reached a deal with the U.S. to pause the tariffs for a month, after Mexico agreed to reinforce its border with the United States by sending 10,000 members of its National Guard. Their task will be blocking drugs like fentanyl from crossing the border into the United States. There's been no such deal for Canada so far today. President Trump spoke with Prime Minister Trudeau earlier today. The two are expected to talk again this afternoon in just a few hours. During a weekend news conference, Prime Minister Trudeau admitted he hasn't talked to Donald Trump since Inauguration Day.
This is a time where we've all remarked on just how active President Trump has been in engaging with a wide range of topics in his first weeks in office. As you all know, I've had many good and substantive conversations with President Trump over the past months, where we've highlighted the work that we can do. Our ministers and officials have been engaging, in many cases like today, multiple times a day with their counterparts to talk through these issues, to move forward on areas of mutual concern. We will continue to engage, and I will continue to be there to work with President Trump as we've worked together in the past. We've worked together to solve some pretty challenging issues over the years. I look forward to doing that again.
It was at that news event on Saturday that Mr. Trudeau announced the Canadian government is countering the American action with its own 25% tariffs on $30 billion worth of American imports, and an additional $125 billion in counter tariffs could be on the way in just a few weeks from now. At the provincial level, various premiers have announced provincial government-owned liquor stores will no longer sell American products. Ontario Premier Doug Ford has been doing the rounds of the American cable news networks. He was on Fox News this morning and on CNN this weekend.
Well, we'll have retaliatory measures. It's unfortunate. We don't want to do it. We'd rather have a strong trading partner with the U.S., build an AMCAN fortress. We want to ship down more products, more critical minerals, more oil. That's what we want to do. But I can assure you what President Trump underestimates, the resilience of the Canadian people, the strength of the Canadian people. No matter what political stripe you come from in Canada, we're united. We're a united country, and we're a proud country.
And when you say retaliatory measures, is that retaliatory tariffs, you believe?
Yes, there'll be retaliatory tariffs.
This morning, Premier Ford announced his government is canceling a contract with Starlink, owned by Elon Musk. That was a $100 million contract to bring high-speed internet access to Northern Ontario communities. Former finance minister turned Liberal leadership candidate Chrystia Freeland has also been on the American News Network. She was on CNN this weekend and called the Trump tariffs a betrayal.
The pretexts are utterly ludicrous. This action is utter madness. It is a betrayal of America's closest friend, of your ally, your neighbor, your best partner in the whole world. It is an act of economic warfare. And the president was clear just this morning that it is a direct attack on our sovereignty. And I have to tell you, Fareed, Americans are going to be astonished by the Canadian response. We're hurt, for sure, because we're your friends and neighbors. But most of all, we're angry, and we are united and resolute. You know, Canada is the true north, strong and free. We love our country, and we are united. We are strong. We're smart. We're going to fight for our country. We're going to fight for Canada, and we're going to be successful.
The financial markets are lower on the tariff news today. Triple-digit losses for the Dow, the Canadian stock market, the TSX down better than 200 points right now. The tariffs are also hitting the Canadian dollar. The loonie at one point sank to its lowest level since 2003. It has rebounded since then. However, the Canadian dollar at 68.52 cents U.S. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow
Returns on News Radio.
Well, tomorrow is Tariff Day. 25% tariffs on most Canadian exports to the United States, and Canada is responding with tariffs of its own on American imports. What could this mean for food? What should we expect when we go to the grocery store? What could it mean for our agricultural economy? Professor Stuart Smyth is the Agri-Food Innovation and Sustainability Enhancement Chair at the University of Saskatchewan. Hi, Professor.
Good morning, Rob.
The tariffs on imports from the United States, how do you think this could impact what Canadians see in their local grocery stores?
I think it's going to be pretty simple. It's going to be higher prices. This 25% tariffs being applied to across the board. I searched through what it's being applied to, and unfortunately, it's being applied to the crucial food imports that we rely on so heavily during the winter months. Fresh produce, vegetables, fresh fruits, oranges. It's applying to all of those products. So at a 25% rate, plus the value of the Canadian dollar has dropped about 2 cents since the start of the year. So in a lot of the cases, I think consumers are going to be looking at, in the range of a 30% increase in price in a lot of these food items.
And what time frame would you give for that price increase, Professor? Almost right away? Would it take a few weeks? What do you think?
I think it's going to be pretty noticeable within the next week to 10 days. In terms of like canned goods or dried goods, right? The warehouses will have some capacity to store supplies of that. So it's going to be as those products are exhausted, we'll see those price increases. But with fresh produce and vegetables, the storage capacity is so much shorter that typically stores will only have a couple of days of supply on hand. So that's a continuous supply chain. So I would think certainly by the middle of by Valentine's Day, we'll see those evidence of those price increases in grocery stores.
What are the chances of shortages of some of these food products, Professor?
That's a possibility that importers in Canada may simply say, with that price increase, we're not able to or not willing to buy at that price, and so they may forego, and that's certainly within the realm of possibility that there may be, back like it was in the lockdown, we see empty spots in the grocery stores. That's certainly within the possibilities of what might play out over the coming days and weeks.
Okay. When you look at the list of items that are being targeted, I mean, how realistic is it that a major grocery store chain could source these goods from other countries that wouldn't have tariffs on them? Or is that just maybe not economical?
Well, certainly a lot of that is done, Rob. So for example, we don't import bananas from the U.S., right? They're coming from Latin America. So things like that won't change. And it's certainly possible that we could begin sourcing, instead of buying lettuce that's produced in California or Arizona or vegetables from that southern U.S. belt, we could look at moving down into buying more things from Brazil or other Latin American countries. Now, they may come out, when we pay the exchange rate and we're buying from other countries at a more convenient exchange rate to the Canadian dollar, those, even though there's an additional transportation cost, that cost, the transportation cost and the exchange rate may wash out, so that there's really very little price increase for Canadian consumers to ship or to pivot to alternative suppliers. So hopefully that's something that the suppliers, the importers, have been looking at since Trump first raised this issue 3 months ago, and they're hopefully close to having agreements to pivot to new suppliers.
Okay, let's talk about our exports to the United States, our agricultural exports. I mean, big ones like corn and wheat and soybeans, beef. How could all of that be impacted by the Trump news?
I'm seeing signs of it already in talking to farmers and exporters, and they've said simply, when you add the 25% tariff, they're starting to cancel orders. So that's going to mean farmers are going to have less cash flow because there might be lower sales opportunities. Or the alternative is that the American buyers do the same thing that Canadian buyers are saying. Look, we're not willing to buy at that price. We want you to drop your price by 20 or 25%. So then the tariff gets us back to where we would have been. So farmers, are going to have reduced cash flow because of the likelihood that if they sell commodities with beef, canola, corn, and wheat, any of these things, it's going to be at a lower price.
Okay. When I listen to Mr. Lutnick, who is the nominee for Commerce Secretary, and even, yesterday when you listened to Donald Trump, they seem to raise concerns about protected industries. And of course, we have supply management in agriculture in this country. And even some people in this country don't think we should have supply management. I just wonder if supply management is in the crosshairs now like never before. What would you say, Professor?
I very much agree, right? So this goes, in the Trump's first presidency, supply management was a significant problem and obstacle in renegotiating the NAFTA agreement. So we came up with the Kuzma agreement in 2018, and Canada had to make significant concessions, particularly in the dairy product sector. And I fully expect, so Trump's already stated that he wants to have a review of NAFTA done in 2025. It was one scheduled for 26, so he wants it a year in advance. And I fully expect that he's going to go hard after supply management if Canada wants to remain part of a renegotiated agreement. And certainly, we should not be prohibiting economic benefits to the entire country simply due to a small supply managed sector.
All right. Professor Smyth, always great to have you as part of the discussion on our show, especially when it comes to food and agriculture. A real pleasure today. Thank you.
My pleasure, Rob. Have a great rest of your day.
That's Professor Stuart Smyth. He's at the University of Saskatchewan. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Trump and tariffs and Canada and Mexico. That's our top story today. The latest development being that Donald Trump has agreed to immediately pause tariffs on Mexico for a month after having a conversation with Mexico's president, who agreed to send 10,000 soldiers to the border with the United States. No such deal, though, for Canada. And Prime Minister Trudeau and U.S. President Donald Trump are set to speak in about 2.5 hours from now, is the latest information that we have. Meantime, the Premier of Saskatchewan, Scott Moe, is having a news conference right now. We join this live on News Radio.
I've said time and time that I'm equally concerned about the flow of fentanyl into our province, and that's why we have invested in law enforcement and continue to invest in recovery opportunities for, unfortunately, individuals, family members, and community members that may have succumbed to that poison that someone has made available in Canada, in North America, and in communities in Saskatchewan. And so there is a broader discussion on trade, imports and exports that will likely happen at some point in the very near future as we, I'm sure, start to talk about the parameters of the USMCA agreement that was signed under President Trump in his previous term just over 4 years ago. I was down with a number of other premiers and Chrystia Freeland at the time at the conclusion of those negotiations to meet with Robert Lighthizer. So I think we'll have much opportunity to discuss the flow of imports, exports north and south of the 49th parallel. And I would say that the engagement that we're undertaking now and the engagement that industries and the business community that is undertaking now is not in vain. It all sets the platform and the grounding for what we can do when we work together. The integrated economy is no accident. The North American integrated economy across that 49th parallel is no accident, and I would say it's highly efficient, and we should respect that, and that should be the grounds from which we negotiate any trade agreement and focus on, how do we reduce the barriers to trade across that border? How do we, as a Canadian partner in the North American alliance and the North American economy, ensure that we are doing our level best, living up to our commitments when it comes to a 2% commitment to invest in NATO, living up to our commitments and removing, drugs and illegal migrants and not allowing them into our communities and into our country. I think there's a broader opportunity for discussion as we move along, but the engagement that's occurring now definitely is going to set the framework for that.
Will you reconvene the legislature to deal with the threat of this threat?
To do what?
To reconvene. You don't think you can do anything to reconvene the legislature?
What would we do?
They're ready to work with you. Talkback just stated in multiple times. She
wants to put up billboards in the Chicago subway. Chicago's in Illinois, and it is a market of interest for us as Saskatchewan, as we export and do import from Illinois. However, if you're trying to influence policy and decision makers that are close to President Trump, they have a Democratic governor, 2 Democratic senators, and their entire House representatives are Democratic as well. And so they are not in the influential sphere of the Trump administration. However, they're equally important for us.
That's from Saskatoon today. That is the Premier of Saskatchewan, Scott Moe, and a live news update from him. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio. The Newsday panel.
Well, let's just jump right into things. Ashton Arsenault is here with us. He's partner at Crestview Strategy. Welcome back.
Hi, Rob. Good to be here.
And yeah, good to hear from you, Neil Brody, longtime conservative strategist, worked in the Harper PMO. How are you, Neil?
I'm fantastic, Rob. How are you doing today?
That's good. I'm good. Thanks for asking. What do you think, Neil, of Canada's response so far to the Trump tariff news?
Well, without having to think about it very long, Canada had to do something, so they did something. The headline is dollar for dollar retaliation. I suppose that's a good first step. But we haven't heard any sort of public discourse about what else is planned. It just sounds like the Trudeau government is content to let this escalate into a never-ending trade war with the United States, and those of us who followed things like the Russian invasion of Ukraine know that once a war starts, anything can happen. So I hope Canadians economically are firmly tied in with their seatbelts on. And when I say there's no discussion of what else is planned, I mean no outside of the box thinking. Just, the only other thing I've heard is maybe Canada will convene a meeting with Mexico, Norway, Greenland, some other people. And nobody in the world will take that seriously. We don't have a prime minister at the moment. Likely won't have another prime minister for another 3 or 4 months. Every country is looking out for themselves because Trump's looking around for his next target. So we had to do something. We did something that's great, but it was kind of weak sauce, in my opinion.
Okay. Ashton, what do you think so far of Canada's response to the Trump tariff move?
Yeah, I mean, we're not exactly approaching it all from a position of strength, so I agree with Neil on that. But beyond that, I think the response thus far, and there are a lot of unknowns still at this point, it's about what you would expect, and I would say that in a somewhat positive way. So, we've seen the initial list of items being targeted by Canada, and obviously we're waiting to see what an expanded list would look like in the event that we're, still having to deal with this in about 21 days or so. But I do think it is somewhat smart to focus on specific products from some key jurisdictions which are Republican-held in the United States, which otherwise sort of rely on the Canadian market. You've got the staples of Kentucky bourbon and Florida orange juice being decent examples there. Look, all of this sort of tit-for-tat hasn't really come to pass yet, so maybe there will be some 11th-hour movements. We gather the Prime Minister is on with Trump at 3 p.m. He was earlier this morning, so perhaps there will be some sort of stay of execution, similar to what Mexico has eked out. But, what's clear to me at this point of time is I don't think the status quo is going to cut it. Again, to Neil's point, the Americans have been rather clear about that. Mexico's moved quite a bit, so let's see what happens by the end of the day. But the wild, inconsistent thing to me is why Parliament hasn't been recalled. I mean, everybody's more or less saying it's a national emergency, and it's a real glaring gap, in my opinion.
So just on the breakthrough with Mexico agreeing to send 10,000 National Guard troops to its northern border, and then Trump announcing a 1-month delay in tariffs on Mexico. What does that tell you about the importance Trump is placing on the border then, Ashton?
I mean, look, he has.
And what can we do here?
He's demanded movement on border security and drug supply, and it seems like at this point in time anyway, Mexico's doing a little bit more than Canada to heed that warning. Whether or not we've even considered something remotely similar to what Mexico has done, I don't know. I obviously haven't been involved in those discussions, but it does look like the President of the United States is looking for a grand gesture of sorts for at least Canada to acknowledge that, okay, message received, here's what we're going to do, but we just have no indication from the Canadian government, and perhaps it's because it's rudderless on what specifically this is going to look like and if there's a way out rather than going down the tariff road.
What do you think of that the news from Mexico, Neil?
Listen, as I always tell you, I watch Fox News, so you don't have to. The southern border, the amount of reported illegal immigration coming across the U.S. southern border is completely out of control. I think during the 4 years Mr. Biden was president, there's something like 5 million, 6 million, quote-unquote, illegals coming across that Mexican border from all over the world, apparently. And so that, if Mexico's getting serious about that, that will help placate one of President Trump's big campaign promises, which is to stem the flow of illegal immigration across that border. 10,000 National Guard. I don't know what that means in Mexico. There's local police, National Guard, the Army. Some reports say that some are involved with the illegal drug trade. Some aren't. I don't know what the National Guard means, but it's a goodwill gesture. I don't know if there's anything Canada can do on that scale to balance that out. Illegal immigration, from what I understand, from Canada into the U.S. Is in the tens of thousands, not the millions. So We've heard reports that Alberta's got helicopters, Ontario's gotten some helicopters, Quebec's doing something, I can't remember what.
Right.
Proportionally, we're doing a lot. Whether that means anything in the grand scheme of things, you'll have to ask President Trump's astrologer.
Right. Okay. We'll stop here. There are so many different angles to this story that I want to ask you about and just get your thoughts on, with tariffs perhaps coming as soon as tomorrow for Canada, unless there's some kind of last-minute reprieve, such as Mexico secured today, a 1-month reprieve. I'm Rob Snow. It's our Newsday panel. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Again, it's our Newsday panel with Ashton Arsenault from Crestview Strategy and longtime Conservative strategist Neil Brody. During the Saturday news event that Mr. Trudeau had, he admitted that he hasn't spoken with Donald Trump until today. They spoke today, but he hadn't spoken to Donald Trump since the inauguration. What does that say, if anything, Ashton?
Yeah, it's not great. The Prime Minister is essentially an emperor without clothes at this point. We're very much in sort of a lame duck period, and I think President Trump is accurately foreshadowing that he's not going to have to deal with Prime Minister Trudeau all that much longer, and so, Canada is not necessarily a priority for the President of the United States, as difficult as that might be to hear. But is it disrespectful? Of course it is, but it's also designed to be disrespectful, and I think we're seeing that play out in real time.
Right. What did you think of that admission that he hasn't spoken to Mr. Trump, but before today, since the inauguration? What did you make of that, Neil?
Well, I think just asking the question is the answer. I mean, take out the names. Okay. What does it say when the President of the United States doesn't want to take the calls or doesn't want to talk to the Canadian Prime Minister? Close your eyes and just let that sink in. It's horrible. It's the sidelining. Over the last 9 years, and I'm a partisan conservative. Your listeners know that. Over the last 9 years, the stature of Canada has degraded, at least with the United States, if not with the rest of the world, to the point where we're not taken seriously. I know that during Mr. Trudeau's prime ministership, how many times has an American president come to Canada? 9 years, twice maybe? Twice. I don't think Mr. Trump ever came. He sent his vice president, Mr. Pence, a couple of times, once maybe. Under Mr. Trudeau...
Well, he came to the G8 and then left in a huff, and they didn't have very nice things to say, right?
He came late and left early. I know. I'm sure you know people who go to parties like that. They come in at 10 o'clock and they leave at 11 o'clock and they eat all your food and then they complain about it after they leave. It seemed to be more important for Mr. Trump to fly to Asia. It's between Washington, D.C. and Asia. You have to stop in wherever it was, Quebec City or something like that, just outside of Quebec City. Yeah. It's on the flight path, so it was convenient, but it wasn't. He didn't go to the G8 or G7, I guess it was back then. It was just a stop off on the way to Asia to talk about something more important, and that's, for better or for worse, that's where we find ourselves today.
Okay. Well, what would you say, Neil, are the differences between what we've heard from, say, Prime Minister Trudeau and what we have heard from the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, on the tariff issue? I should note Mr. Poilievre's having a news conference in about 45 minutes from now. What do you think the differences are?
I don't think there's a lot of difference. I saw Mr. Poilievre of the Conservative Party put out a press release about a Canada First plan that included dollar-for-dollar tariffs and some help for industry by tax cuts and repealing resource legislation that the Liberals put through. But it's kind of the same as what the headlines are kind of the same as what Mr. Trudeau's put out. But I can't blame Mr. Poilievre because Mr. Poilievre doesn't have the same amount of information about this deal and the economic position of Canada as the Prime Minister does. So I go back to what I said off the top is I haven't, other than one-for-one tariffs, I haven't heard anything else out of this government that sounds reasonable to reassure Canadians that something's being done. Mr. Trudeau has all of the information. He has whatever it is, 350,000 public servants working for him to put together a comprehensive package on this, and it's basically been crickets.
Okay, where do you think the daylight is between Pierre Poilievre and the Prime Minister when it comes to this tariff issue? Ashton, what would you say?
Yeah, I think it's been largely consistent with what the Liberal government's putting in the window. So, supportive of tit-for-tat tariffs. He's saying that we should make it hurt as much as possible. So I think everybody is on the same page there. What I think separates Poilievre's response to date is he's being a little bit more forward-looking and action-oriented on how we can better shield ourselves from these types of events going forward. So I'll give you one example. I'm not sure if you saw it, but there's a 7-minute video he put out today, which is essentially a policy manual for how he'll address interprovincial trade irritants here in Canada. Canada famously known for scoring a lot of goals on itself, and he highlights that as a specific concern. And he's also been clear on expanding energy exports, much more so than the current federal government. But yeah, look, it's a really sad reality in Canada that it's easier for provinces to do business with foreign governments than it is other provinces. So that should probably stop.
Mr. Poilievre has also been talking about, we need to develop pipelines. We need pipelines east. We need pipelines west. We need more LNG facilities, more diversification of Canada's trade base. Could you see kind of a wake-up call like this spurring activity like that, Ashton?
I certainly hope so. I mean, again, we have a notorious history of giving ourselves black eyes on this, and it's always appeared needless to me. There are, specific irritants, and, there are conversations with Indigenous Canadians, and then, one province shows up at the 11th hour and flips over the table, and nothing ever gets done. So it's just terribly injurious to our economy as a whole, and I don't know who else needs a shot in the arm to come to, grips with the fact that something is going to have to change here, but it doesn't have to be this way, and we better figure it out, or eventually we'll be in a similar situation again.
Okay, we'll be right back. It's our Newsday panel. I'm Rob Snow, and this is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now you know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Our Monday Newsday panel with Ashton Arsenault and Neil Brody. I'm Rob Snow. Let's talk about how this could impact domestic politics. Lots of calls for Parliament to be recalled and the prorogation. The Parliament not supposed to be back until March 24th. Do you think prorogation of Parliament could end, Neil?
Listen, for prorogation to end, I think the Prime Minister would have to go back to the Governor General and ask for a mulligan, and that's not going to happen. The Prime Minister is still Justin Trudeau. We know he doesn't like to admit his mistakes. So now that he's decided Parliament will come back at the end of March, I think we're coming back at the end of March. I can't see any way Parliament comes back until there's a new Liberal leader chosen. Because if you can believe them at their word, and politicians, sometimes they say things that don't actually happen. I wouldn't say they lie, but whatever. Mr. Singh said he's going to bring down the government. Mr. Blanchet said he's going to bring down the government. Mr. Poilievre said he's going to bring down the government at the first opportunity. So if you bring Parliament back, there's a chance we go into an election right away, and I don't think the Liberals can afford that monetarily or just anyway.
Okay. Is that how you see it, Ashton?
Yeah, as per usual, I agree with Mr. Brody. I find it more unlikely than not that the Prime Minister will schlep over to the Governor General to use Neil's words, ask for a bit of a mulligan. I don't see it happening. I think the situation would really have to get chaotic for them to even consider that, for all the reasons Neil laid out. I mean, it's a very dangerous situation for the government to be in Parliament right now. It does rely us to take the opposition parties at their word. I have concerns about one in particular. But until such a time, I don't see Parliament being recalled, and I think it's just a huge mistake. It just does not look like we have our best foot forward.
There has been talk that certainly the polls are narrowing already, and that the Conservative lead is not what it once was because of Mr. Trudeau's pending resignation. That's given a bit of a boost to the Liberals just because he's gone. Could this provide even maybe more of a lift for the Liberals in the polls as Canadians rally around the flag and see Trump as, orange man bad? What do you think about that, Neil?
You can make T-shirts that say "Orange Man Bad," and I think you'll sell a lot of them, Rob.
Maybe.
The only lift I think this gives the Liberals is if they have a solution to the tariff problem that Canadians can understand and get behind. The solution involves appeasing President Trump, and I mean, if anyone knows how to do that, they can sell the solution for $1 billion around the world. I can't see the Liberals, even under a new leader, and by extension a new Prime Minister, being able to convince Canadians that after working 9 years to economically kneecap Canada's economy and insulting President Trump, that they are now the best political party to solve the economic crisis and placate Trump. That just defies any idea that I might have. And so I think that the bump is temporary. Once there's a new leader of the Liberal Party, they still stay mired in third or fourth place.
45 seconds or less on this giving a lift to the Liberals. What do you think, Ashton?
Yeah, I think there's two things happening in tandem, right? There's a leadership race, which is drawing a lot of attention, a lot of eyeballs, a lot of ears, and I think it's pretty natural and organic to get a bit of a boost. The Prime Minister has been identified as the problem, right? I will say, I think he did a pretty solid job Saturday evening when all of this news broke. It's a challenging situation and one that I think does rally Canadians together, but this is all sort of perspective at the moment, right? Like, the tariff rooster has not come home to roost. And so, when things really go sideways, will Canadians still be supportive of the Canadian government's response? I don't know. I don't think we have enough information to make a judgment call.
Okay. Good to hear from both of you. We'll see what the rest of the day brings. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rob. Have a good day, Ashton.
Yeah, Neil Brody, longtime Conservative strategist, and partner at Crestview Strategy, Ashton Arsenault. Trump, tariffs, Canada, the big story. Talkback is next.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day, and there's one big issue today, and that's tariffs. Trump's tariffs on Canada, Canada's counter tariffs on American imports into this country. It's Monday. These tariffs were announced on Saturday. They are supposed to come into effect tomorrow. We now have late-breaking news that Mexico has apparently been able to reach a deal with the Trump administration, pausing the tariffs for 1 month by agreeing to send 10,000 members of its National Guard to reinforce its border with the United States. But nothing so far on Canada. Trudeau talked with Trump earlier today. They're supposed to talk again in 2 hours, and about a half an hour from now, the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, is supposed to have a news conference, so it's going to be a very busy afternoon. But we would love to have a wide-ranging discussion about this with you because there are just so many different angles to this story. So our phone lines are open right now. 1-833-668-2577 is our number to call. 1-833-668-2577. I mean, we have lots of questions that can act as conversation starters. Why, first of all, I've never been through anything like this before, I have to tell you, in all my years. Why do you think President Trump is doing this to Canada? Why do you think President Trump is doing this to Canada? Is it about the border? You look at the Mexican news, you think, well, maybe it is about the border and illegal immigration and the illegal flow of drugs. The news about Mexico and the 1 month pause and troops on the border, that broke about an hour and a half ago or so. So is it about border issues or is it about other things? Yesterday, Donald Trump was saying he wasn't happy with the banking sector in Canada and how the banking sector is regulated in Canada to keep American banks out of Canada. American banks can't open here. He's talking about agriculture from time to time. And Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, was talking about agriculture and how certain parts of agriculture are closed because of supply management. National defense comes up from time to time. Trump basically thinks Canada's a freeloader when it comes to spending on the military, but, so do a lot of other people. A lot of Canadians think Canada's a freeloader when it comes to spending on the military, that we don't spend nearly enough. But just why do you think Donald Trump is doing this to Canada? What's his motivation? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. What do you think about the response from the Canadian government and from various provincial governments so far? There's going to be retaliatory tariffs phased in. To start, 25% tariffs on about $30 billion worth of American imports to start. And then, depending on how things go in a few weeks, if these American tariffs still exist, the Trudeau government says there will be more tariffs on more stuff. $125 billion worth of American imports could face tariffs. And the Trudeau government says everything is still on the table, including an export tax on our energy exports to the United States, like oil and gas and electricity. And numerous premiers have expressed their opposition to that. The latest within the hour was the Saskatchewan premier. Scott Moe does not like the idea of export taxes. The 25% tariff doesn't apply to Canadian energy exports right now. The tariff is 10%, not 25%. Do you give any credit to the Alberta Premier Danielle Smith for that? There's a break on tariffs on energy. Does that mean that Premier Smith's charm offensive to the United States worked to a certain extent? I mean, what else? People booing the national anthem at sports events, the American national anthem. And lots of talk, and we talked about this last week, boycott America. The idea of not spending money on American-made products seems to be a thing right now. I don't know if it's just a social media thing or what. Maybe you're taking part in it. We've certainly heard from political leaders, don't spend money in the United States. Don't travel to the United States. Change your vacation plans. Vacation in Canada instead. Don't buy American-made products. Look for made-in-Canada products instead. You going to do that? Have you been doing that already? A common answer when we talked about that last week was that people didn't have any plans to boycott American-made goods or boycott traveling to the United States because they didn't think it would make any difference. But there are lots of other angles to the story. We're just open to discussing tariffs, and wherever you want to take the discussion, let's see where it goes. If you've never called before, just mention that to the call screener. We'll make your call a priority if you're a first-time caller. And again, the number to call, 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Steve and get things underway. Steve's in Calgary today. Hi, Steve.
You know the movie line in Forrest Gump, stupid is as stupid does? This is exactly the scenario they're talking about. The Trump 25% stupid tariff reintroduces inflation in America. Canada's businesses take a hit. Stupid does is us bringing in our own stupid tariffs, and now we're going to say, hey, if you think that was dumb, we're going to punish Canadian consumers by bringing. There is zero reason to bring in our own tariffs. All it does is reintroduce inflation, and then the bank rate's going to go up. And for those who don't understand it, you're about to. When inflation hits 3%, it has legs. Nothing will be done until it hits 5%, and it's 2 to 3 years to bring it back down. High central bank not put in a 5% tariff. There is zero upside to it. This is stupid does. We're about to commit stupid does. Call your MPs and tell them there is no upside to our own 25% tariffs. All you're doing is hurting Canadians, and it won't move the goal line by 1 inch because Trump does what Trump does. And that's just the way of the world today. Anyways, my thoughts.
All right, Steve, I thank you for sharing your thoughts and getting us off to a running start here. 1-833-668-2577. A couple of lines available there. I'd love to hear from you today. It's the biggest story in the world right now. The tariff story affecting financial markets and could soon be affecting all of us by way of our pocketbooks. So have your say. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
The way things stand right now, Trump's tariffs come into effect tomorrow. Canada's responding with tariffs of its own, and we are gathering your thoughts on all of this. 1-833-668-2577. Nathaniel in Calgary up next. Hi, Nathaniel. What are your thoughts today?
Hey, Rob. I look at this as, from the business point of view, and you think about any business deal that is done via, two people, communicating, and Trump not having any communication with, Trudeau not having any communication with Trump is just an embarrassment. I don't understand how we will really come out of this without major damage. He wants things done at the border. Listen to him. And, you look at all the things that are coming out of the U.S., we don't have any resin plants in Canada. There's no good that's going to come out of this. So at the end of the day, I believe it's best of our best interest to come to the table and not make this worse.
Okay. Now, Mr. Trudeau, as you brought up, admitted during his news conference that he had Saturday night that he hadn't spoken to Mr. Trump since the inauguration. He tried to explain it away, kind of said, well, Donald Trump's a very busy man, but they spoke today and they're supposed to speak again in about 2 hours from now. Do you think Mr. Trudeau is part of the problem here, that it's personal?
100%.
100%?
And I don't know how, I would love to hear a liberal answer that question, because the guy will make time for you when we are on the same border. They have a lot to offer, and we have a lot to offer. I think something's missing and something's not being told. And to say that we're friends on national television, I don't know. I think if I was Trump, I'm sure he's sitting there in his room and he's just laughing. What a joke of a prime minister of Canada to sit there, we're friends, but doesn't come to the table when others are.
Okay. Thank you, Nathaniel.
Thanks.
Trudeau's part of the problem, and it speaks volumes that Mr. Trump is not taking Trudeau's phone calls. Although, again, they are speaking today. Larry up next in Red Deer. Hi, Larry.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Larry. Good to hear from you today. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, the world's greatest trading partner, right? Trump, America. You ever hear the quote, Babylon has fallen, Babylon has fallen?
Babylon has fallen. Okay, explain that.
Oh, well, in this time, great woe is coming. So, because it's just collapsed. It's going to collapse really fast, though. I'm sorry to say.
What is going to collapse, sir?
All economies.
All economies.
Nobody's going to be able to trade.
Okay. Why do you think Mr. Trump is doing this, then, if that's going to be the outcome? Surely he doesn't want to collapse the American economy.
Just a bad choice.
A bad choice.
A bad choice
okay.
is a thing to do. He could have chose anything else, but he chose this. And this is a world thing, my friend. Not just us. Not just China. Right. Not Mexico. Everybody. He said to the whole world, even the European Union, my trumps are going to land on all of you. And what happens when you kick somebody hard enough? They stop. They turn around and they say, don't even talk to me anymore. You're done. We'll find everybody else to deal with but you.
Okay. So you think the United States is going to be isolated because of this, and that it will be bad for the United States?
Completely isolated. The choice is made for him.
Okay. Why do you think he's making that choice?
Like I said, it's just that time.
It's just that time. Okay. I don't really follow what you mean by that. It's just that time.
We'll be calling shortly. Many, many, many people. You'll be crowded, all right. So I say have a good day and thank you very much.
Okay. All right, Larry, thank you. To Michael in Cape Breton. Michael, up next. Hi, Michael.
Yeah, Rob, she's in bad shape, but how many times you got to be told after 150 years or more of Liberal and Tory failed policies, when they were down to Washington, Tommy Douglas asked them in the House of Parliament, who have you got gone to Washington to open the door on discussion about free trade? And they said, Alan McCachran and McDonald. And he said, oh my God, innocence abroad. Trump got one intention. He wants the continent of Canada. He wants our riches, he wants our water, and God knows what Mulroney and Paul Martin, they both made the statement when they signed their free trade deal. Now, you know we got to give up some of our sovereignty. Try to find out, Rob, in your position, off of one of those ones running for the Liberal leadership, what part of our sovereignty did they give up? And who's all our debt owed to? It's a power play for the continent that we live on right now. And they want Canada. And a guy said to Tommy Douglas in the House of Commons, they're going to be up over the borders in the tanks, the Americans. Tommy Douglas told them, don't be so silly. He said, they'll do it with the pen. And that's what they're doing right now. They're doing it with their pen. And they'll have control of this country. And the same Liberals and Tories will be protecting their own interest. And it'll be the ordinary people suffer. And
all right, Michael.
By the way, Rob,
Thank you. That's our time. Thank you. I have to run. Thank you, Michael. In Cape Breton, 2 lines available there for you on the Monday Talkback. It's pretty freewheeling today. Trump, tariffs. Canada, 25% tariffs on our exports to the United States as of tomorrow, 10% for energy. And Canada retaliating with 25% tariffs of our own. And lots of people wrapping themselves in the flag saying, I'm not going to travel to the United States. I'm not going to buy American goods. I'm going to buy Canadian instead. Let's talk about it. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We're talking tariffs again today, now that they could be here as soon as tomorrow. Again, Trump and Trudeau scheduled to speak on the phone in about an hour and a half. Maybe there will be some kind of breakthrough. There was a breakthrough with Mexico. Tariffs paused on Mexico for a month after Mexico agreed to send 10,000 members of its National Guard to its border with the United States. So let's wait and see what the day brings, I guess. But as far as anybody knows, tariffs will be imposed on Canadian exports, and we're going to tariff American imports into this country. Scott in Waterloo. Hello, Scott. Hi, Scott. Are you there?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi,
Hello?
Scott. Go ahead. What's your opinion, Scott? Go ahead.
I think the reason he's doing this is just to renegotiate the USMCA that his administration came up with during his first term. And he's using bully tactics like he always does in any of his dealings. And he's lying about the real reason for it, which he also always does. He's blaming everything from, like today he came out with the thing that we don't allow U.S. banks to operate up here, which is not true.
Okay.
And with regard to the boycotting, yes, we're... my wife usually crosses the border once a month or so to shop in the U.S. We're not doing that anymore. We're going to be checking products like everybody else to ensure that we're buying Canadian.
You will do that. Okay. All right. Now, you're not going to the United States to shop. Is that specifically because of this, or is that more of a Canadian dollar thing? Because a lot of people last week were saying Canadian dollar. There's no point going to the U.S. with the dollar where it's at anyway.
It has a little bit of both. It has to deal with a little bit of both. But she's been going across regardless for the last few months, like, at Christmas time and stuff when the dollar was low. But now, given this and Trump's actions towards Canada, we've decided not to go at all. Same with March break. We're not going to the States like we normally would.
I see. So you are, in effect, you're boycotting the United States, right?
100%. And only because of his policies.
Only because of his policies. Okay, Scott, thank you. Good to hear from you. Rudy in Lethbridge, sneak you on here before the news. Rudy, go ahead. If you don't finish, I'll bring you back on.
My opinion, I think Trump wants to make life miserable for Canadians simply because of money. If you have a $400,000 saving or a house here, you convert that to U.S. dollars, you're going to lose easily 35%. So you're down $140,000, $150,000, and there's money to be made for the wealthy, Trump and his group, and that's why tariffs and that, or you make life miserable, and he wants to take over Canada. I think we would.
You think he really wants to take over Canada? He wants the whole country.
I think he does. And there's, like I say, a lot of money to be made when you start. You can't have U.S. dollars and Canadian dollars, so you convert your Canadian money into U.S. and you're going to lose 35% easy or more.
All right, Rudy. Thank you for your call. More of your calls coming up right after the news. Trump's tariffs, Canada's response, your own personal decisions with your own money. Will you boycott America?
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you today. We're talking about the tariff threat and the tariff response from Canada and your own personal response, whether you will be avoiding U.S. products or traveling to the United States. 1-833-668-2577. John is in Calgary. Hello, John. Thanks for calling. You're on the air. What's your opinion, John?
Hi, Rob. Thanks for having me on. I think
You're welcome.
2 points, really. The first, there's 3 reasons why he's doing this. First is he said he would, so it's red meat to the base of his party. The second is, of course, it will bring in revenue to pay for things that he may want to do in his own agenda. And the third is it's going to drive investment dollars to the US. I'm in oil and gas here, so specifically here it drives oil and gas investment down to the US. But I actually wanted to have a counterpoint, which is I actually want to see the positives that are coming out of this. It's driving the right conversation in Canada. Canadians are beginning to think about where they buy goods and where they should spend their money. Well, frankly, we should have already been doing that, but at least it's started now. So that's a positive. And the other is it's probably going to drive diversification in pipelines, other markets, and make us go out into the world and find other parties to do business with. So let's look at the positives of that. Now, if Trudeau today has to give a little bit in order to avoid the tariffs, then he will. They're our biggest trading partner and probably going to be more significant in the future. So if he has to give a little today, that's fine. But the conversation that's been started here, absolutely fantastic. That's what we should be talking about. And that's really the points, Rob, I wanted to make today.
Okay. Kind of a light bulb moment maybe for a lot of Canadians, maybe a lot of Canadian political leaders as well. Okay, thank you. To Carl in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Hi, Carl.
Hello there. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Yeah, this is most unfortunate. I am a proud dual citizen. He's playing by his rules, and he's always said everybody in the world has to pay. Everybody has to pay, and he's fulfilling the promises he promised. And I was a snowbird for the majority of my life at a young age. I was a building contractor, so when the contracts were done, I worked the summer in Canada and the winters down south, either in Texas, where my wife was from, or in Florida. And yeah, sure, if I could afford to go to the States during the winter and go back to that lifestyle, I would do it in a heartbeat. I can't afford to do it. And this business about, Canada becoming a 51st state, I honestly don't believe that that's true, that he wants that, to be honest.
Okay.
I mean, think about it. Just imagine it for a minute. Like I might, myself, for example. I mean, if we were part of the states, well, then we could travel freely across the border. I think there'd be a mass exodus. Everyone who's dreamed of spending winters down south, anywhere, Arizona, California, you name it, they're going to go. I mean, and go find work down there. There's tons and tons of work all over the U.S. It's massive. And so, yeah, I don't believe that for a minute. But anyway, so we'll see how this all plays out. At least he's bringing everybody to the table. He wants to be able to negotiate with Canada with an upper hand. And that's just what he's doing. So it's negotiable. Trudeau better get his butt, on the horn and let's talk turkey. Let's make a deal.
Okay. Well, they talked this morning for the first time since the inauguration, and they're supposed to speak again 3:00 Eastern, we were told, which would be less than an hour and a half from now. Carl, I thank you for your call. Oscar is in Calgary. Thank you for calling, Oscar. You're up next. What's your opinion about what's happening here?
Well, I've been listening to the news from down east this morning, and all the politicians from BC to Newfoundland are saying we got to buy Canadian.
Yes.
Not one of those politicians or those provinces said that they were going to buy Canadian oil. It was just buy Canadian.
Right.
Nobody's talking about buying oil from Alberta, and nobody's talking about building a pipeline from Alberta east. That's the problem with this tariff war. It's everybody for themselves, and nobody's taking care of my province as far as I'm concerned, Alberta.
Right. Okay.
That's what.
Well, when it comes to, I should ask you, because you brought it up. It's only a 10% tariff on, for example, oil exports from Alberta to the United States. Who do you give the credit for that to? Do you give credit to your premier for that?
Well, I would say because she actually went down there and talked to him. What is Trudeau? Well, he goes and hides in the bathroom and doesn't see anybody, and he talks to him for the first time since the inauguration. I mean, this guy just, he can't go out there and be a leader of Canada because he doesn't know how. Right?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's a lack of him trying to get a hold of President Trump or whether it's just President Trump doesn't want to talk to the guy.
Well, I would say Trump doesn't want to talk to him because he's
right.
You've seen how Trump has treated him over the years. He treats Trudeau like an idiot because that's what he thinks he is. Anybody that works for Trudeau, somebody's telling them what to do. It's not Trudeau and his bright ideas. It's somebody else's ideas. It's not his. And Trump knows that. Right?
But you would like to hear more about, if you really do mean buy Canadian, you'd like to hear more about like an Energy East pipeline, for example, right?
Yeah. Because they accused Danielle Smith of not being a true Canadian when all the other provinces were saying, well, let's be a team member. Well, everybody forgot about Alberta for the last 10, 20 years, and they were only pulling for themselves, right? If we didn't have Lougheed here, we wouldn't have all the oil in Alberta, I'll tell you that much, if he hadn't started it.
All right. Thank you, Oscar in Calgary, who says if you really mean buy Canadian, then people in Eastern Canada should be open to buying Alberta oil via something like an Energy East pipeline. In fact, Danielle Smith has an opinion piece in the National Post today that expresses that very opinion. A very interesting read, another angle to the whole Trump tariff story, isn't it? I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. Join the discussion, 1-833-668-2577. More of your calls just ahead on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Barring a last-minute reprieve, the Trump administration is going to slap a 25% tariff on most Canadian exports to the United States tomorrow, and then Canada is going to respond with tariffs of its own. And we're gathering your thoughts on what would appear to be a trade war. 1-833-668-2577. Kyle in Listowel. Kyle, thanks for calling, Kyle. Go ahead.
Well, I gotta call into a Canadian show with one of the best Canadian hosts there is, So
very kind.
I just thought that's the first one. The second one is I got my rabbit ears ready because I've canceled every single American programming I have. I got no. We don't use Amazon in my house because I don't believe in Amazon. So I got my rabbit ears out so I could get the 2 stations I could get in my area. And my oranges I bought on the weekend were from South Africa. They're not from America. I don't know. Honestly, this tariff thing, I was kind of worried in the beginning and all that stuff. And I just think it's going to be just one of those things that we have to put up with for, it's a temporary measure. It's not going to be for everything. Change your ways. Be smart. That's all I got to say. I don't know. It's something that we shouldn't worry about, really. I mean, I know that the Canadian dollar has tanked, but people could look at it as a positive thing. If our Canadian dollar's tanked and the American dollar is worth more than ours, are we not going to get more business because people want to do business with something that's a little less cost effective than something that's going to cost more when it's a good Canadian-made product?
Well, it will. A weak dollar has traditionally been good for the export side of the economy, but we're so reliant on the United States for so much of our international trade that whether the dollar is at 75 cents or whether it's at 68.5, which is where it's at now, with a 25% tariff, that's going to be tough on a lot of Canadian businesses. But thank you, Kyle. I mean, one of the forecasts that's out there, I mean, is an unemployment rate of 10% in Canada. 10%. Yeah, I mean, imagine that. 1 in 10 people unemployed. Brian is in Halifax. Brian, thanks for calling, Brian. You're on the air. Go ahead. What's your opinion?
Well, first of all, I'd like to respond to something Oscar said. No Canadian has ever forgotten about Alberta because Alberta has been whining about everything for longer than Preston Manning was around in Alberta. So nobody's forgotten. Nobody's forgotten about Alberta. Trust me.
All right.
Second thing is, the whole boycott and everything. While I've been seeing a lot of stuff online, and I think a lot of people, there's a lot of people that are just being super aggressive about it. And it's kind of like the whole Loblaws boycott. People can only do what they can do. And not everybody has the privilege of being able to, buy only Canadian, buy only local.
Right.
And there's a lot of places that, sure, their headquarters and the business is based in the States, but they employ people in Canada. And, forgetting about that, the whole liquor thing, like Budweiser, all of it's brewed in Canada that we buy here. Practically little beer or anything like that's beer basically, is actually imported from the States. Most of it is brewed in Canada under license. And things like Molson Coors, that's, they're also part Canadian. It's not like Coors came in and bought them. In fact, I think Molson actually is the majority shareholder in that situation. So there's a lot of stuff people need to think about. And I hope it doesn't become this aggressive thing, where people are getting on each other about this, that, and the other thing. And, you're not buying Canadian. That's not Canadian enough. And stuff. And it's just you got to do what you got to do. And, there's a lot of different aspects, like the way international, multinational, finance, trade, and manufacturing happens. It's really hard to kind of unpack a lot of where exactly everything came from. But I think the best thing that's happening about this is us talking about breaking down the interprovincial trade barriers, doing a lot more between each other. I think that'll be really, really good for Canada. Though I will say, again, Oscar was talking about the Energy East pipeline. That's not the rest of Canada, really, that stopped that from happening. It was Quebec. And so, pretty much everybody else was all on board with it. New Brunswick was, Ontario was, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. It was just Quebec because you had to go through that part of Quebec. So I think everybody else is we should absolutely do that. But I would like to remind all the Albertans that when Pierre Trudeau tried to say, let's buy Canadian oil only, Alberta lost their minds over that. So, this whole thing, Alberta, as I hear,
but it was buy Canadian oil.
Time.
It was also buy Canadian oil at half the world price.
Well,
it was also buy Canadian oil at half the world price and put an export tax on Alberta oil to all the other customers. And it devastated the Alberta oil industry and threw tens of thousands of people out of work. They lost their homes. I mean, it wasn't all sunshine and lollipops, the National Energy Program. There's a reason they haven't forgotten about it 40 years later. Thank you, though, Brian, in Halifax. We will stop here, and then we'll take Peter's call out in Langley, British Columbia today. Mara is in Calgary. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. What a way to start the week. Wow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On the looming tariff threat, let's go to Peter in Langley. Hi, Peter. You're on the air. What's your opinion here, Peter?
Good morning.
Hi, Peter.
There's a lot of different ways of looking at this, and the thing that I tend to dwell on is I feel quite embarrassed, actually, about how the premiers and the Prime Minister have been going about this whole thing. What we've seen is this has been going on for quite some time, and all I see are the premiers and not so much a Prime Minister, but the premiers going and chasing Trump. You know, they're all standing in line, you know, ready to kiss the ring kind of thing. And it hasn't done any bit of good whatsoever from what I can see. All they've done is confirm that Trump is on the throne and he's in control. And the premiers are doing, you know, silly things, sending out a video of, I don't know, some helicopters going up and down the border or something like that. And I don't think the border, Trump's excuse about the border or the excuse for the tariffs is because about lax border controls. Because, I mean, now he's complaining about the banks, which we know is false. So he's just making up, you know, one thing after another. And I think the real thrust behind the neoconservatives down there and Trump are that they want to have complete control of Canadian airspace, Canadian North, Canada, period. And I think they're going to do it by stealing away our industry. And the longer that these tariff threats, and that's all it has to be, is a threat. He doesn't actually have to implement them. The companies are going to be in limbo, and eventually they're going to get sick and tired of this, and they're just going to move down south. And
they'll grow tired of the uncertainty in the investment climate and these sorts of things, and they'll be saying, well, I don't even want the threat of a 25% tariff, so if I expand my business, I'm expanding in the United States, or I'm leaving Canada, I'm going to go to the United States. For greater
sure.
certainty.
I mean, if you're a company and you're trying to make plans and what have you, and there's uncertainty, what are you going to do kind of thing? And I think, Canada will never win a trade war because the Americans, they don't need our products. You know, other than new oil, they don't need our products. And I think what Canada ought to be doing is, for one thing, is announce today that, well, look, you know, our economy is going to take this gigantic hit. There's no way that we're going to make NATO's 2% spending. So that's off the table. We're not doing it. And, you know, we send our police officers down to the United States to train. They send theirs up here to train. Well, you guys aren't really being very friendly towards us. In fact, you're looking and you state that you're going to take over our country. So let's withdraw from that agreement. And I think that withdrawing from agreements, the extradition treaty, I would cancel that extradition treaty. Because actually, you know, you think about it, Rob, if you were to say something about Trump and then that was impactful, they could they could call out use the extradition treaty to have you sent down there, even though you're a Canadian citizen.
Oh, really?
Now I know. Pardon? Well, I know.
I'll try not to be impactful then, I guess.
Well, I mean, you know, you're in Canada, and I know that the extradition treaty states that there has to be a crime in Canada and a crime in the U.S. It has to be in both places, kind of thing. But you know, the way things are going, I believe that they can twist that around, and they could pressure on anybody over here that's being critical of the Americans down there. And anyhow, that aside, those are the kinds of things that I would do to get the American attention. Is I would start withdrawing from agreements and treaties and what have you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Peter. Very thorough today. Very interesting points. That'll be it for hour number one. Very, very busy, and we do have some phone lines available. You can join us in the second hour, full hour ahead, as we talk about this big issue. Trump tariffs, Canada's retaliation against the Trump tariffs, and your own personal decision-making, like boycotting American goods at stores, buying Canadian goods instead, avoiding traveling to the United States. Let's pick it up right after the latest breaking news at the top of the hour. Busy news day today. We'll bring you right up to date. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
The Trump tariff threat still in effect. Those tariffs could hit Canadian exports as soon as tomorrow, and Canada, in response, will issue tariffs of its own. What are your thoughts on this? Right back to the phone. Some people have been waiting quite a while. Mera in Calgary, thanks for waiting. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yeah, hi there. Go ahead, please. What's your opinion?
I'm just going to pull on the site. Just give me a sec.
Okay.
Can you hear me properly now?
I hear you just fine. Yes, please.
Okay. I'm a small businessman. Okay?
Okay.
Or maybe about 10 to 12 people employed. And my business is 100% based on the import of the material from United States.
Okay.
Because of some of the limitation in our business, that it has to be certified by ULC. Anyhow, I don't know how to be the job with these tariffs on us. It's hard to even deal with the fluctuation in the currency. Now we have got a compounded effect of the tariffs.
Right.
So one of the things is, I don't know whether I want to be in the business with this kind of a headache. I've got enough to live on, and I just probably might shut it down.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Because of these kind of
What
things.
are you importing that could be subject to tariffs?
Okay, I import pipelines, pipes. I import sprinkler products. I'm in a fire protection business. Almost every product, every product has to be certified under ULC, which is Canadian equivalent of UL.
Okay.
And if I don't use these products, my insurance will not cover. Okay, so I can't depend on importing from China or anywhere else. I have to be 100% dependent on it. Second portion is this. I bid the jobs sometimes 6 months in advance. And I was having a difficult time to deal with 70 or 80 cents a dollar to a 70 or 60 cents a dollar right now.
Yes.
Probably lose money in some of the projects because I signed it.
Right.
So, bottom line is this. I don't know why Trudeau is picking on a big guy. Pick guys.
Well, he's picking on
of
us.
Your own, he pick guys on your own strength. Why doesn't he look at this bigger picture that he's picking on a very strong and basically egomaniac guy who doesn't know. Nobody knows what he does today or tomorrow, but he wants to retaliate on it with his small stick in his hand. He has a big stick in his hand. You will never reach him with your small stick compared to his stick.
Right.
So why are you hurting? If he doesn't put retaliated tariffs, I will be in business because my product will not have tariffs coming from United States.
Right. Okay.
And I worked very hard in my life.
I'm sure you did.
I came 50 years ago. I'm crying. You can hear it.
Yes.
I do not want to leave it because I love it.
Okay.
But I left no choice.
Okay, sir. Well, the day is not over. There's still hope. And I thank you for calling. You put a real human face to it, Mara. Thank you for your call. And all the best. There you go. Real world impact there. Jack, up next, also in Calgary. Jack, you're on the air. Hi, Jack.
Hi there. This 10% this 10% oil tariff is definitely not Danielle's doing. You think he's going to listen to little old Danielle? She's not even a head of state. Trump realized that there could be a voter backlash in the border states. He probably doesn't even listen to his wife. He probably listened to the border state Republican senators and decided, well, we need the oil, and that's why he decided to reduce the tariffs on oil. We should actually cut off all oil to them and increase the tax on Teslas 100%. Secondly, the true reason Trump is doing this is nothing else but taking over Canada, and he said that some months ago, that he's going to bring economic pain to make us capitulate. And I still said and just like Trudeau said, when hell freezes over.
Okay. So you think that his end game is to make us the 51st state? You think he wants Canada?
That is definitely what is, from what I've been reading and everything else.
Yeah.
The ulterior motive is that, like fentanyl, less than 1% is coming from our borders. It's a joke. And, how many immigrants, illegal immigrants are going from Canada to the other side? Not much at all. Nothing.
Nothing compared to the U.S.-Mexico border, right?
Correct.
It's a much bigger issue down
there. And this one, I was reading some of the comments and everything else from the U.S. side, and they say the true reason is he said that he was going to bring economic pain to make countries buckle down. And that's what he's trying to do. And he picked the wrong people, really. I know, like the previous caller said, Trudeau is trying to pick on the bigger guy, but you can't talk to that guy. We've already done all the talking. There's nothing more you can do. We can't just lay down.
So what should we be doing now? What should we be doing now?
I think we should go back. We should retaliate.
The
people in the border states feel the pain and put pressure on Trump. The only people who can put pressure on Trump are the people of the United States, not the Canadians.
All right. So turn off the lights, right? No electricity exports from Ontario, Quebec, no oil and gas from Alberta, Saskatchewan, Newfoundland, Labrador, whatever.
Well, why don't we send the oil to other provinces and maybe send it to China and India?
Well, if it was only that easy, right? If it was only that easy.
Use rail, though.
If only we
don't have pipelines, but we have rail, right?
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Yep. So there you go. Mayra says, if you put retaliatory tariffs, I am out of business. And Jack says, we need to retaliate. Need to stand up to Trump, and that includes cutting off oil and gas. Your thoughts, please. 1-833-668-2577, hour number 2 of Talkback on a Monday. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Trump's tariffs could hit Canada and Canadian companies. Tomorrow, Canada is responding with tariffs of its own on American imports into this country. And meantime, all over social media, I see people are saying, I'm not going to buy American-made goods anymore. I'm not going to travel to the United States. I'm going to boycott the United States. Your thoughts on all of this, please. 1-833-668-2577. Bernie's in Mississauga. Hello, Bernie. Hi, Bernie. Are you there, Bernie? I don't think Bernie's here. How about Steve in Edmonton? Steve.
Yes, hello.
Yes. Hi, Steve. Go ahead.
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm not political. This is the first call I've ever made into a radio station. I just thought that people need to kind of calm down and get what's really going on, right?
Okay, what's going on?
Tamara, I'm very sorry, but I think you can do it. I don't think you should quit.
Okay.
Jack, I think you're totally wrong, but we're all Canadian. And we have freedom of speech, all that kind of good stuff. For the tariffs, this has been coming for how long now? Since Trump was since he won, right? So
even before that, when he was out campaigning, he brought up tariffs all the time, right?
That's right. And Trudeau had a lot of time. He has a lot of ammunition too, that he could have done a lot of things, but he didn't. He decided to go reflect and let this snowball roll down the hill into an avalanche now. So with that said, first of all, Trudeau killed all pipelines coming out of Alberta. He even killed one that a private company was building out to the BC coast. Then he used taxpayers' money to rebuild it. And that's how the oil got from Alberta to the BC coast. So let's all agree with that, right? So there's no possibility for oil to go anywhere except the BC coast and to the States, which Trudeau made us reliable on too at a discount. So with that said, these tariffs that came, everybody knew they were coming. And there's a lot of saber rattling, Doug Ford making money off of his hat, all this rhetoric back and forth, which Americans are our brothers and sisters. So I don't understand where all this divisiveness is coming from, but it lies with Trudeau. And now he's resigned. He's a lame duck, and I don't understand
he's going to resign. Yeah,
that's right. So with that said, like Danielle Smith, God bless her soul, for doing what she has done for Alberta. I mean, if the taps were turned off, no royalty checks would go anywhere in Canada. And that's the truth. Canada is very reliant on Alberta. And for the way that Alberta has been treated, I do not blame the way that this has gone. And
plus, if I could just interject there, I mean,
sure.
One thing I think we've all kind of learned in the last little while is about how pipelines work in this country and just how feasible is it. If you cut off the oil to the United States, you'd also be cutting off oil to Ontario and Quebec, basically, right? Because it goes through the United States before it tracks back up into Canada and into Sarnia, where all those oil refineries are.
100% right.
So are people who are saying, well, we should cut off the oil, are they ready, if they live in Ontario or Quebec, to, I don't know, pay $5 a liter for their gasoline if they could get it at all? I don't know.
I understand what you're saying. More Canadians need to understand what's really going on here.
Okay.
And I mean,
all right.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you for your call.
Welcome. Thanks for the talk.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
But Steve also mentioned the difference in price between the Canadian oil and the American price for oil. The West Texas WTI is at $73 a barrel today, and the Canadian oil, the Western Canadian Select, is $56 right now. That's the difference. Okay. David, you said you had some fresh audio of Donald Trump just in the last hour or so, some new audio into us?
Yes, we do. Yeah, he was he does these meet and greets with the reporters in the Oval Office every so often, and a big topic today, of course, is the tariffs, the difference between Canada and Mexico, and he had an exchange with a reporter where he again, Rob, brought up Canada as the 51st state. Here's what he had to say.
Okay.
On Canada, when you talk to Justin Trudeau again, is there anything he can give you at 3 p.m. when you talk again to also
I don't know.
Pause,
I don't know.
like you said with Mexico?
I don't know. We have big deficits with Canada, like we do with all countries. I mean, I look at some of the deals made, I say, who the hell made these deals are so bad? But with Canada, I have a talk with him, you maybe know or maybe not. We're going to meet again or talk again at 3 o'clock, right after my next meeting. and we'll see what happens. I can't tell you what's going to happen.
You mentioned that he could agree to change your mind on the tariffs?
Well, we can always, look, what I'd like to see, Canada become our 51st state. We give them protection, military protection. We don't need them to build our cars. I'd rather see Detroit or South Carolina or any one of our Tennessee, any one of our states build the cars. They can do it very easily. We don't need them for the cars. We don't need them for lumber. We don't need them for anything. We don't need them for energy. We have more energy than they do. We don't need them for energy. So I say, why are we doing this? Why are we willing to lose between $100 billion and $200 billion a year? We don't need them. As a state, it's different.
As a state, it's different. Okay. Read into that what you will. I just find it remarkable. Wow, who are the idiots that signed this agreement? Well, you were the idiot who signed the last free trade agreement. CUSMA, Canada, U.S., Mexico free trade deal. That was you, Donald Trump. We'll be right back. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
All right, on the countdown to tariffs and counter-tariffs, Michelle up next, calling from Calgary today. Hi, Michelle.
Hi. I have got a lot of static on my end. I hope you can hear me okay.
I hear you just fine, yeah.
Good. It just distracts me on my end. We're in the deep freezing Calgary and the minus 30 wind chill factor. Not a pleasant day. Many of your people calling this morning have been good with their observations. I think they've been very accurate. I've got to say, my ancestors fought and died for the U.S. and Canada. They're buried in both countries, and they were freedom fighters. They separated from the Crown in Great Britain on both sides of the border, and they're buried in graves in New England, and they were involved in the Declaration of Independence. They were involved in Upper Canada. They're intelligent. They believed in democracy, and they believed in freedom. And he is a dictator of just like Putin. He's going to get an oligarch, his little wealthy cronies that he's going to feed. He wants this entire country, because if he's got the majority of the continent of North America, that threatens China. It threatens Putin. And he knows it. And he's looking for his basket. What's the term when people do their bucket list before he goes? He wants to make a great big notation on his life. Look what I did. I've lived in Hawaii. That was a state that was consumed by the Americans, and the true Hawaiians resented it right up to the 80s when I finally left. And I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like the ugliness in the Canadian politicians like Poilievre. He's cruel, he's vicious, he's mean, instead of focusing on what Canada really needs, which is cooperation within its borders and also outside its borders. And I think that Canada should team up with Great Britain. We are a Commonwealth country. We should team up with the European Union and fight for democracy. You just can't take over your neighbor. Look what Putin did in Crimea. And I remember calling Harper at that time. It was the Olympics final ceremony, and there was a chopper picking up the prime minister of Ukraine and whipping him into Moscow because they knew what they were doing. They just walked in and took over areas that they wanted to take over. Trump wants our resources. He wants our water. He wants our gold. He wants everything. He wants the space. He wants everything. And then on the political front, he wants to look big so that the world that he's opposed to will kowtow to him. This is a 4-year job stint. The guy needs to go now. He should have never been elected. If you watch his face, it's like he's got an agenda already built in his brain. He's not listening deeply to anyone that has half a brain. And I think we need to show him shows of force on intellectual levels, on minerals, on oil, on electricity. Turn it off. And don't wait for him to do the first chess piece. Shut it down.
They're playing the music. They're going to haul us out of here. Thank you. Very, very strong opinions. We love that around here. It's Talkback. Back right after the news. More of your calls, more opinions. The countdown to tariffs. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
The Trump tariffs on Canadian exports to the United States could come into effect as soon as tomorrow. If they do, Canada will respond with tariffs of its own in about 25 minutes from now. Prime Minister Trudeau, is expected to speak with President Trump. They spoke earlier today, although it doesn't sound as though much progress was made, as speaking from the Oval Office, Donald Trump again reiterated his idea of making Canada the 51st U.S. state. So we are gathering your thoughts on all the developments on this story today, and the day is not done. Dan in Calgary. Dan, thank you for calling, Dan.
Hey, Rob. It's Dan here. I'm not going to belabor all the stuff that's already been said about pipelines and stuff, but, if we're the first ones that they're picking on, and if Canada stands up, that gives everybody else, like the European Union and everybody else, the same opportunity to stand up too. And here's China. Really quickly, just recall the debt. And then let's just put an end to it all. That's all I've got to say.
Okay, you mean for China holds a lot of, for example, U.S. government bonds, for example, you sell them into the market or whatever, dump the bonds. Exactly. I guess you could create a lot of financial chaos for everybody if that happened. So.
Well, I mean, is chaos seems to be the order of the day, and that's exactly how Trump likes to operate. So give him some chaos.
Okay. All right, sir. Okay. You don't sound very optimistic either. Okay. I will say this, the stock markets, thank you for your call. The stock markets were deep in the red this morning. At one point before the markets opened, the Dow futures were down 600 points, and now the Dow Jones Industrial Average is climbing back up, and it's almost into positive territory. It's just down single digits right now. Small losses for the U.S. market. The S&P TSX is our main stock index. It's down less than 1% right now. Our dollar actually for a while traded below 68 cents U.S. It hit a level not seen since 2003. It traded as low as 67.61 cents U.S. It started to rally on the news that Mexico had received this reprieve of 1 month by agreeing to put 10,000 National Guard members at the U.S.-Mexico border. That kind of gave a lift to the Canadian dollar as well. So just an update on how all of this is playing out in financial markets. Tom in Cambridge. Thanks for calling, Tom. You're on the air.
Hi, Rob. How you doing? I think Rob, that was a great
It's
line.
busy today.
You idiot. Who signed that?
I'm sorry.
There's a lot of things here.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would happen if Prime Minister Trudeau, before his conversation with Mr. Trump, gave an order to the Canadian Border Services to make sure that all the Border Patrol service agents do a thorough check of any car coming across the border, and if it takes 30 minutes, it takes 30 minutes. Excuse me, Rob, for a second here. Medium double. I'm sorry, medium with 2 cream, medium green, tea, 1 milk, 1 sugar, and a small black chamomile tea. Thank you. Sorry about that, Rob.
Okay.
Anyhow, but what would happen if he did that? But what would happen if he made an order?
I don't know.
Order to do that.
I don't know. I don't know what would happen.
It is like, and if he doesn't need anything from Canada. So is that saying Canada became the 51st state? Would that mean we would be the 3rd poorest state in the Union? Because he doesn't need anything from us. How are we going to support ourselves?
I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying it just makes like we've got to do what we got to do, and I'm saying I can't do much more than we have right now. And then if the other countries want to join or support Canada, then they should.
Okay. I'm going to let you go. You go get your Tim Hortons order sorted out, and we'll move along. Thank you. That's the second time somebody has been ordering food at a drive-thru while they've been on the air with me, and they've both been from Cambridge. Tom did it. He's from Cambridge, and Paul was the last one to do it. Remember, he was at
Wendy's.
Burger King or Wendy's or something.
Maybe it was Burger King. It was a Whopper and fries. You're right. It was Burger King. I remember that.
Okay. Yeah. Try not to do that. Try to get your fast food order sorted out before you call. Prakash in Calgary on the air. Hi there.
Hello, Rob. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Yes. I think the previous callers have spoke largely regarding the solutions, which I totally agree. The Canadian solution should be the pipelines across Canada from Alberta to the East Coast or the West Coast. If Trump is saying drill, baby, drill, the Canadian version ought to be pipeline till cows come home.
Okay.
On a broader note, on a general note, we feel what it feels like when the shoe is on the other foot. So hopefully the lessons learned. Do we or do we not join in country groupings to do similar political or economic pressures to other countries in the future? So we now know the feeling, and hopefully our decision makers in Ottawa will use it less than they have been doing so. That's my contribution.
Okay. All right. I thank you for it. Thank you for your call. 1-833-668-2577. We have cleared the phone lines. Been very busy for the last hour and 40 minutes here on Talkback, but we now have time to fit you in free lines to hear your opinion. And we'd love to do that today. Love to hear from you today. It's Talkback. I'm Rob Snow, here with David Smith. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Al in Alberta, you're on the air on the tariff issue again today. Hi there.
Hi, Rob. I think some of the backbenchers in the White House have ordered a straitjacket. It's being made right now. It's made out of triple ply canvas, and they go to that. I think it's number 25 on the Constitution that allows them to do something with a fellow at the top of the pile that's out of control. And it's going to happen when somebody tells him that all this money he's going to pull in with these duties, or not duties, but tariffs, it comes from his own people. It doesn't come. The Chinese are loading ships like crazy, saying, "Hey, we got to get this over there before somebody tells him that we're not paying it. His people are paying it." Anyway, have a good one.
Okay, thank you. Pointing out that it will most likely mean higher consumer costs for Americans. Now, Mr. Trump said yesterday during his remarks, I believe it was at Andrews Air Force Base, he did predict that there would be quote-unquote short-term pain. There might be some pain. Rob in Cambridge up next. Rob. Hi there, Rob.
Am I getting anything, first of all, from drive-through, Rob?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Sure you don't want anything?
I'm fine. Thank you.
I think the problem is I think a lot of Canadians don't realize how broken our country is. So Donald Trump has been mentioning the border. This is from, if you remember, what I'm going to say to you is from an article from 2023, the Globe and Mail. Over 4,000 criminal gangs are operating inside of Canada. I'm going to say that number again, 4,000. Now, we have complete open borders. How do we know this? I have two people that I personally know that work for customs. One out of every 40 shipping containers is being looked at. Why? We have no manpower and we don't have the equipment. Oh, so maybe before we start beating our chest and wanting to run up to an elephant and kick it in its shin, we should start listening to what the people might be requesting from us first. Why don't we have our military go to the border right now and start doing things. You know why we can't? We have no money. Our poor military is going to food banks. We have 6 planes. 4 of them are for parts to keep the other 2 flying. So when you put a country into poverty like you have, there is no money anywhere. We are pretty much bankrupt. He's making a joke. He's joking back at us going, you sure you don't want to become the 51st state? I mean, your people up there don't seem to be able to take care of you.
Okay.
I think that's the
So
bigger
Trudeau
picture.
is supposed to speak. So
it.
let me ask you, Rob. Trudeau's supposed to speak with this guy in 10 minutes or so.
Yep.
Do you expect any positive developments out of that?
Well, the problem is you've got a person that can't stand the other person negotiating with each other. This was a backstabber. Right. Remember, he got off the plane. He figured Trump wasn't listening to him when he was on Air Force One. Trump even made the joke, I guess he didn't realize we had cable, and made him look like a complete buffoon. Now we send that person in, a lame duck who already stepped down. And you know what? I think more pressure is supposed to be put upon the actual government right now. We have nobody sitting there. We're prorogued. For what reason?
Yeah.
And the reason is apparently because the Liberals have a problem picking a leader. What business is that of mine?
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks,
in Cambridge. Also, Paul in Cambridge. Your ears must have been burning, Paul.
How in the heck do you remember what I ordered the one time I was in the drive-thru?
I'm paid to remember things, sir. Paid to remember things.
You know, I heard that in the radio. I thought, well, I got to call in, give my 2 cents worth. But I'm not in the drive-thru today.
That's good.
Listen,
okay.
Trump is serious about trying to take over Canada. Well, one way or another. What he's doing right now is he's just making it super hard on all of Canada, and then he's going to turn around and back off and say, oh, that's Trudeau, he was quite the negotiator. I'm going to give you a good deal here. That way, Canadians are going to forget about the last 9 years of his screw-ups and go ahead and support the Liberal Party, whoever they happen to put in there as Prime Minister unelected.
Right.
Then they know a Liberal government is so weak. He's got the next 4 years to just walk in and take over Canada, because as long as we have a Liberal government, there's nobody there that is going to fight for Canada. If Carney gets in, he's going to sell us out in a second. God help us if Freeland gets in. We'll be heading to the U.S. food banks to try and get food.
Okay. All right. Well, I will tell you something else that I remember about you. You were one of the few who called and said there's never going to be $250 checks. Forget about that. You're never going to get a $250 check.
And I was
lo
right.
And behold, just last week, it was one of the ministers in the Trudeau government said we can't give everybody $250 anymore because we have to fight Donald Trump. So it turns out...
I was right. It was in...
you were ahead of the curve on that, Paul. I gotta give you credit for that. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your call. We'll be... Yes, I do. Thank you. Well, sometimes I do. I am getting up there. Sometimes I'm just trying to remember my name. Especially on a busy day like this. There have been so many developments in this one single news story today. It's enough to make your head spin. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is. 1-833-668-2577 as we wind down Talkback on a Monday. What a start to the week. Very busy. Lots of opinions, lots of interest, a lot of people paying attention to what could be coming to Canada by way of tariffs. And then, of course, counter tariffs to be imposed by the Canadian government. Linda, up next. Hi, Linda.
Hello. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Linda. I'm good, Linda. Thank you.
Oh, it's good.
What's your opinion on all of this?
Well, the only thing is I had to say is in regards to the tariffs, right?
Yeah.
They're saying, well, 25% on this, that, but only 10% on oil. But Trump has, well, the dollar, their American dollar compared to our Canadian dollar, has already put us down below. And then when you look at the rate that the Americans are getting for their oil as we are, I think we're at a 25% tariff already with gas and oil, the export. Because if you look at the difference in the dollar,
they're certainly getting Canadian oil from Alberta at a discount, almost $20 a barrel. Discount.
Oh yeah, cheap.
Cheap, yeah.
It's always been cheap, right? Because it's more beneficial for them.
Right.
So yeah, and as far as buying and stuff, well, I've talked to you once before. When I went to the U.S. in the 70s, and our dollar was actually above par with the U.S., but they wouldn't recognize it.
Okay.
So, well, we're only giving you this. So I thought, okay, fine. That's the last time I've been to the States, and I don't buy anything U.S. if I can't help it.
Okay.
So
okay. But you've been doing that all along. You've been doing that all along, right?
Well, yeah. Well, looking at it, and then I'm looking at some packaging that says, well, it's made in the U.S., and I'm thinking, okay, now I'm not buying that anymore because I thought that was a Canadian product. And then sometimes you're not sure because they put a Canadian label on it because it's been packaged here, but that doesn't mean to say it was processed here.
Okay. But you do your best to kind of do your own due diligence on where products are coming from, and you have been doing that even before.
Well, yes, because these
events.
Right, yeah. They've been hitting us constantly. So I just no. I found even when I had to deal with Americans, I found that they were arrogant and snubby. So I said, I don't need that, thank you. But the only thing is, that's me. I'm doing it. But there's a difference in this country between haves and have-nots. I've talked to those who have, and say, oh, well, it doesn't matter, right? Because you have that option. So they'll do it regardless.
Yes.
But if the haves would say, okay,
some people are not looking at labels in this, especially in this economic environment. Labels are one thing. The big thing that matters to a lot of people right now is the price tag, not the label. Right. It's all about the price tag. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
welcome.
Linda.
Okay, bye.
Yeah. Good to hear from you. David, in the final, 90 seconds that we have here, can you just play that Trump clip again, the fresh audio that we have in? What he said about after his first phone call with Mr. Trudeau today?
On Canada, when you talk to Justin Trudeau again, is there anything he can give you at 3 p.m. when you talk again to also
I don't know.
Pause,
I don't know.
like you said with Mexico?
I don't know. We have big deficits with Canada, like we do with all countries. I mean, I look at some of the deals made, I say, who the hell made these deals are so bad? But with Canada, I have a talk with him. You maybe know or maybe not. We're going to meet again or talk again at 3 o'clock, right after my next meeting, and we'll see what happens. I can't tell you what's going to happen.
You mentioned that he could agree to change your mind on the tariff?
Well, we can always look. What I'd like to see, Canada become our 51st state. We give them protection, military protection. We don't need them to build our cars. I'd rather see Detroit or South Carolina or any one of our Tennessee, any one of our states build the cars. They could do it very easily. We don't need them for the cars. We don't need them for lumber. We don't need them for anything. We don't need them for energy. We have more energy than they do. We don't need them for energy. So I say, why are we doing this? Why are we willing to lose between $100 billion and $200 billion a year? We don't need them. As a state, it's different. As a state, it's much different. And there are no tariffs. So I'd love to see that.
All right. So that was after the first phone call between Trump and Trudeau. Let's hope the second one goes better. Supposed to be on the phone any moment now. Any developments in that, of course, we'll bring you right up to date. This is News Radio